Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us at Hanging with Education. Tonight we're going to be looking at Google Sites and how educators might be able to set up Google Sites to do some pretty interesting things. As with all Google tools, you can integrate many of the tools together in some pretty interesting combinations. I am going over the tool tonight from the assumption that people have never used it before, and if we need to, we can add some extra features on people desire. A reminder that the website where you can find all the information on the sessions is 5squared.us, and you'll see that address right here on the screen. That address, if you click on the second tab, Hanging with Education, you can find the upcoming sessions. And if you would like to go over more advanced Google Sites options, on the right hand side there is a form right here embedded into the site. This is a Google Site example where you can come down, type in your topic, your email address so I can email you or contact you with questions, and just what state you're from, just because I'm collecting that data, and you hit submit. And it's that easy to put in any topics you'd like to have us go over. If anybody is able to type in the chat, it would be very helpful to know if the volume settings and all of that is all set. Just give me a little thumbs up. So I'm going to jump right to the sites.google.com site so you can see what that looks like. In my case, I have many sites that I've been a part of. Some of these sites go back to 2010, so they're quite old. And some of these I've just made recently in a training session with teachers and whatnot. You probably don't have any sites available. In fact, you may have like an introductory tutorial like Welcome to Sites and all of that stuff. If you'd like, you can go through those introductions later. There's a way to review those at another time. We're going to be going over some of these things tonight, so you really won't need the introduction as much. I would like you to click on Create, and this will bring you to a screen where you can choose what kind of site you would like. There's many different types up here, and I'm not going to go into all the details of all the options here, but many people will see the browse the gallery for more. And one of the items you'll find in that gallery is the classroom site. And people immediately think, oh great, a classroom. I am doing this for a classroom. Let me try that site. I would advise you on not doing that as your first attempt with Google Sites, as it includes a lot of, I want to say, more advanced plugins that until you understand how Google handles making web pages on their sites, those advanced items may really get you confused as to what's going on and how do you control those elements. After tonight's session, you might feel a little bit more comfortable playing around with the classroom site they have here. But there are tons of other sites. In fact, I'll share with you a template or two that I've made that you'll find in the gallery that you could use as well. So we need to name our site. And naming the sites is very difficult because there's millions of users out there using the service. So I'm just going to try this one, Ed's Demo. You're going to have to come up with a different name. Hanging with Ed. And I'm going to put today's date, 11/2/16. Now, that's an ugly name, and I probably would never, ever name a site that. But I wanted to come up with something unique that has a good chance that nobody else is going to take it. So when I click off, Google will do a search for that to see if your site name is available. And if it isn't, it'll pop up with a red error message saying, hi, that name's not ready or not available. One of the next things you'll want to do is select the theme. And this little triangle drop down lets you know there's options. So if you click that little triangle drop down, you can choose a theme. Now when I have students create websites, they spend a very long amount of time playing with all the different options here. I always encourage students, pick a simple website design first, then later play with the options once you get the content on there. Because a lot of them go for things like the branches that have this beautiful artwork and everything else. And then they realize once they start putting content on there that it really, the branches and stuff get in the way, or it's just a distraction. It's not what they wanted. And they end up changing it anyway. With the format chose, and you can see I have that red border around simple. You can choose any of the others, by the way, if you'd like to. When I scroll down towards the bottom, there are more options, and the more options where you can put in a site description of what you have. And of course, there is a check mark. Hopefully in adult ed, we don't really need that check mark. But this check mark down below, I am not a robot, is vitally important. This is Google's way of checking to see whether some computer is trying to spam create tons of websites to clog up their server. So with this bottom check mark done, I'm not a robot, and you've chosen a template format, you can hit create up on top, and this will start your website. Now I have noticed today, I don't know if there's weather issues or network issues down the pike or not, but I have noticed that there has been a little bit of a delay in response tonight with some of the sites and such that I've been working with. You can see that I have my home page here, and you now have a website set up. Granted, this is fairly basic, and I want to go over some of the ways you can change that. This name up here is obviously an ugly name. I would want to change that. And I'm looking at my screen right now in 150 resolution, so it normally would be more of this size. But in order for people to see the text a little more fully, I've zoomed in a little bit. And for those of you who are having difficulty seeing the text, I want to remind you that when you go to the live stream page, there is a full screen option. And you won't be able to see the text chat in full screen mode, but you will be able to see the screen much larger. So I encourage you to use that. There are three very basic tools that are up here on the top: the edit page, the create page, and your more actions. I say basic. The first one's really the most basic, which is edit page. That just edits the current page you're looking at, which is our home page. And you'll see up top there's a whole bunch of word processor type buttons. There's also, I want to direct you to the layout first. Many people like to have multiple columns in their site. So I'd encourage something like a 2-column. I like to have a header and footer in mind. So a 2-column header footer might work. Maybe a 3-column if I have different types of information. Maybe I want a news report in one column. I want homework assignments in another column. And then, classroom announcements in a third column. But there are different choices here, and that will affect just this page. So you can have multiple pages with different layouts. So I have this home page, I have a little header region here, and I've got these 2 other boxes for columns, and then I've got a footer down below. So I might say, welcome to my class, or whatever you'd like. And again, this is just like a word processor. You can highlight things, choose the different fonts you want, and the sizes, and even the coloring of the text if you'd like to match your theme that you'd like to go with. So maybe I want a nice purple for that. Welcome to my class. Another thing that you might not be familiar with, they don't use this too much in word processing, but under format, there are some HTML choices. So if you've ever played with HTML, these headings are part of a formatting that is used in HTML. So if I choose heading 2, you can see that is one type of format, whereas if I highlight that for a different heading, you'll see it automatically goes to a certain font type and size and setting. And then of course you go down to heading 4, it's even smaller. So this is pretty standard when you're doing HTML work in the on the cloud, or you're writing something inside of a browser. You might see these formats. heading. Usually there's heading 1 as well, but heading 1 I believe they have set up for this place up here where it says home. I believe that's in heading 1 right now. But when I have the page set up the way I'd like, welcome to my class, maybe I have a note to parents here, and then maybe a note to students. You know what? I'm going to leave this place blank because I have something I want to add here later. I want to have like a newsreel of things that I want my students to know, or upcoming events, things like that. I want this to be kind of like a little blog summary over here, so I'm going to add that a little bit later. All right, so I've saved it. I still have this annoying name up here, but I just wanted to get through the basics of editing. You simply click on the pencil at the top. You enter in where you can type everything. You have to remember to hit save. And under the edit screen is where you can choose your layout for that particular page. And you can format your text in different ways using the different format tools. Now there are some inserts. You know, I would like to insert an image or something to the parents. Maybe I want to share a classroom picture. So I've moved my cursor down a line. I'm in the edit mode. And I'm going to hit insert. This insert dialog box has tons of options, especially when you come over here and you start looking at anything you've saved in your Google Drive is available. I can insert an entire document into a web page if I want. I can insert an image that I've stored in Google Drive, usually through Picasa or their tools there. Notice down here I have YouTube videos I can put in. There's so many different options of what you can put in here. If it's Google, you probably can put it in here. So maybe I want to start a Hangout. I want a button so that my students can automatically start a Hangout with me if they have a question. You know, and I can configure that so that when they click on that button, it sends me a little message saying, so-and-so would like to invite you to a Hangout. Would you like that? That might be a little dangerous to put on a website that's wide open to everybody in the world. But if you had a closed website for a classroom, that might be very useful. I'm going to insert an image, and in true Google fashion, they give you the option to upload images here, or you can click on a web address if you have a web address where you're going to get that image. I'm just going to upload an image real quick here and choose just a graphic I have on my screen. So I have a folder where I have some images stored, and this is a piece of origami I do with my STEM group. So maybe I'll put in here. If you're not familiar with the alternative text, I have a lot of students who say, why am I putting alternative text in here? For people who have to use a screen reader because they're blind and they're trying to navigate through your site, the alternate text is the only thing that the screen reader picks up. So they're not going to pick up the fact that this is a picture of an origami ball unless you type in origami ball, and then the screen reader will actually read that. So it's a good practice to consider all people who may view your site and use the alt text whenever you put an image in, so the reader rather can pick it up correctly. Now, when an image is in here, this is a little different. For most people aren't used to this. I have a 2-column situation. You can see this. I don't know if you can see in the feed, but there's this very thin white line showing that my column ends here, and this picture bleeds over. And I can see that I'm at original size. So I'm going to change that to large and see, okay, that's still too big. I'll go back to medium, and how about small? All right, small fits inside my column, and I'm probably going to center that inside the column. So notice it is column dependent. And I also can change word wrap, whether the words wrap around the picture or not. So just a few settings. If I have my cursor off of the picture, I've just clicked on the second column. If I click back on the picture, that menu shows up again. Also notice that it gives me a link of where to go to see this picture full. Let me show you what happens with that. When I save my site, this is like a preview. If someone clicks on that image, they can go see the full image right here. Google automatically creates a saved place for that full picture to be. So you don't have to worry so much that your site might have a very small picture in it. It will it'll give you the opportunity to have a preview there, so it will go to full size, even if you had to show a smaller version than you'd like to. So now we have a web page with a picture. And by the way, if there are things you would like to see added to a site and you'd like to type that into the text chat, please feel free to add that as well. And I can try to put that in there. Now, a website with one page probably is not going to do a whole lot for you. I did mention that I'd like to have some kind of running news or updates for my students. So let's take a look at creating a new page. There's a few options in here that you should know about. The page name is easy enough. I'm going to just call this news. And I'm going to come down here where it says choose a template. Normally you choose web page. For the news, I'm going to choose announcements. It's kind of like a blog page, if you will. Normally, again, I would just choose web page. But for this one, I'm going to choose announcements. And it asks, where do I want to put this? Every website has a tree structure, very much like the old DOS system, if you're familiar with that, where they had folders inside of folders, and the top level is kind of like your root drive. Or I could put it underneath my home page. Where you put the page is not terribly vital at first, but as you get more and more and more pages in, the organization of where you're putting pages becomes more critical. If you make a mistake and you put it in the wrong place, there is a way to change that later, and we'll look at that when we have a moment here in about 15 minutes. I'm going to put this at the top level now. If you wanted to, you could choose another place in your site. I don't have a very complex site yet, so I'll put it right at the top level, and I'll hit create. And I call this news. You can see the news. What's really nice here is it gives your students a chance to subscribe to posts. That means that if you post things in your news feed, parents could have this subscribed so that they automatically get these updates. Hey students, don't forget that your first draft of your report is due next week. Now, boom, that goes automatically to everybody who's subscribed to the news feed. So this is where this becomes really powerful. So I'm going to click New Post just to make a post so we have an example. And again, I do apologize for a little bit of a delay here. I have Untitled Post up top, and I'm just going to say First Post. And I'm just going to keep this simple. Welcome to the first post. And I'd write all my article in there, and notice that I have all the tools available up here that Google includes for editing. And I can also insert pictures and images and things like that inside of my post. So that also can be done. And when I'm done with all this, I click up here, I can save this as a draft, or I can just hit save. So let me see, am I done here? Yeah, that's probably everything I want. I'm going to save the draft. It's saving. It's got my first post in there. And I'm probably going to want another post in there at some point. So I'm going to edit the page. Well, that already goes back to there. Sorry, I don't want to edit the post. Let me save that, and we're going to go back and use that news post back at our home page. So on the left-hand side, I have a little navigation here where I see home and news, and then sitemap. We're going to edit this in a little bit. I wanted to make a news feed show up on this right-hand side so that I get summaries, because some of my posts may be big or maybe a lot of information. Might be a poster my students need or my parents need. In this case, I'm dealing with adult educators, so that might be a cheat sheet for the next coming test, or a study guide that they might be able to use. So I only want an abbreviation to show up here. So if I click on edit again, I can come down to that column, and I can go to insert and say recent posts. Now a recent post has to be connected to a news feed of sorts, an announcements page. Now, I already have a one set up called News, and Google already identifies the news announcement page I created. I can choose how much of each of my news posts do I want. Do I want just a short little sentence or two, about a paragraph, or do I want the full post? Depending on how long your posts are going to be, you probably want to choose something around the middle of the road, or maybe even short. If you're going to post often, you probably want short snippets so that you have multiple posts appearing on someone's web page without them having to scroll. If you put full posts down there, you probably don't want to be updating those posts very often because that could fill up a page pretty quickly. So I'm going to choose medium snippet for this, although my posts are going to be so incredibly short in this demo that it really won't matter. I can include a thumbnail, so if there's graphics involved, they'll see an image with each post. I don't choose to do that with the one I have on here now. And how many posts should you display? So if you're doing a post a week, 5 posts, that's the last month worth of announcements. That's probably a good amount. And then I can add an intro post to my announcements. I'm going to choose to not do that. I could put a border around it and include the title. And I'm just going to put down news you need to know. And I'll hit save. Now, this is where some students and teachers get a little frustrated. It just looks like a box. And up top, I have this center thing, left, right, and I've got the wrapping, and I just don't see anything. I want to know what this looks like. We're in the edit mode, I'll remind you. And in the edit mode, we're only going to see placement of things. How large is it? Where is it at? Those kind of issues. Now I notice my announcements go off the page just a little bit, and this little gear icon, this properties, lets me modify some of those things. Now I'm noticing that I don't have any place here to modify the size or width of this particular tool. Most of them have a little bit of a size adjustment. This one doesn't. So maybe my news feed has to be on a page that only has one column instead of 2 columns. Or possibly I put my newsfeed down here in the footer because that's a single column. So that might be another solution. But let's see how this looks first. I'll come up here to the top to save. And it will now give me what the end viewer will see. News you need to know. Great. So I come in. I want to add more news. I go to my news page. I have my first draft. I'm going to go to a new post. And this is taking a little bit to load. And I'm going to put down here my second post. I know these are not exciting, but use your imagination. We'll put an image in on this post just so we can. Balloons. Yeah, balloons are worth celebrating. So we're celebrating the fact that they got through the first post by putting some balloons up on the second post. And I'll type in balloons. And I'll hit OK. And again, this comes in where I can choose the placement. I'm going to center that. This is the original. If I choose large, it's much larger. Medium, and there's the small. I'm going to choose back to the original, which it looks like it defaults to small. And that's pretty good. I don't want anything else in my post. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll turn wrapping on. And actually, I think that's a toggle, so I just turned it off. Wrapping is on. Okay, so I've turned it on. This is how you turn it off. Turn wrapping on, and I'll say, congratulations on surviving the first post. Now, people will say, well, I don't want it there. You do have to hit enter a few times to move things up in this case. It's going to move it down. So I can't get that text to slide up on a picture like that. I can try to move it over, but I don't know if that's going to put... It just puts the text on that left side. So this is a frustration, where people were saying, well, I want that text to slide all the way up to be like in the middle. And this isn't a what you see is what you get type configuration. So there are some limitations on that. I may want to change the size of my image or grab a smaller image in that case if I don't want something to take up so much space. So there are some limitations here. If you know a little bit about HTML and web page design, and you know a little bit about photo editing like through Photoshop, you can still make some workarounds that work within the system. So I'm going to save that draft because I was writing that post, and I'm going to go back over to home. And now if I refresh the page, I'm hoping I see that. Well, I saved it as a draft. I don't think it actually saved my second draft yet. My second post. Let me get back to, I'm going to hit save this time. Save as a draft means I want to work on this a little bit later. So when you hit save, it actually logs that in like, okay, he's done editing. That post is ready for prime time. Let's put it out there. And that's where you see the publishing up top. So now if I go back to home, I can see news you need to know. That was my first post. My second post is right here. Now notice how my picture did not show up here. And that's because when I created this whole news feed, I didn't hit that little checkbox that said show preview. So when someone clicks on my second post now, they get to the post that I had put in, which is really nice to see. Now, I want to point this out since we're in a good place to see this. When I scroll down to the bottom, I've got this add files and comments and stuff. It would be very nice to allow people to put comments in here. Unfortunately, Google was a little bit of a tease in this element. I've left comments on here and I've asked people to leave me comments. Well, there's a few different settings that have to be set, and they have to have a Google account to be able to leave a comment. So if you want to do stuff for your students who already have a Google account, that might work. You can put down, could you please leave some comments about this article that I'd like you to review next week? And students can leave some comments. So it could be an interactive page where people are putting down some ideas. Another thought might be I could put a writing prompt up here and ask them to write a paper based on that writing prompt and add the files when they're done. So we can peer review those files because we've gone through a peer review process. So in that case, they may be able to add the files. In this case, I don't need them on this page. So I want to introduce a new button up top we haven't played with a little bit. And I will warn you, this can get daunting real quick. I'll try to keep it simple. When you click on that, there are a ton of options. And each one of these options has a few other options inside of them. What we're concerned about right now is page settings. It's like the third or fourth one down. If I hit page settings, I can choose to not show that title up top that was on top of that section. I can choose to not allow the attachments or comments, and I can describe this page. Again, the page description would be useful for screen readers. And if I wanted to change the name of it, I can change the name of it even right here. And then I'll hit save. And what you'll see is when this screen refreshes, it no longer has those annoying things on the bottom. It doesn't have the title up on top. It doesn't have my second post showing up here. So, maybe that way I can keep track of my posts or what they were, and the public doesn't see that. I would have to write some text on here for them to see this. Now, if I go back to home, nothing changes here in my post, but when I click on it, I'll get to the original. Now I'm wondering what happens. Notice how it says news you need to know. My very first post doesn't come through as a link. My second post does, and it says showing posts 1 of 1. And if I click view more, it brings me right to the news page where people can subscribe. So that's a nice feature as well. Okay, I'm going to take a look over to see if there's any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions yet. Please feel free, if you have some questions, you can post them there. Now, I would like to have that preview function on this homepage. If I click edit, I get into edit mode. Remember that this announcement goes back to this white box-ish thing. I can click on that and I can change those properties by hitting the gear. So now I can include a thumbnail of the image in my post. It'll be of the first image in your post. So if you have multiple images, make sure you put them in the order correctly so you see the one you want. And I'll hit save. And I just wanted to illustrate this so you can see how that looks a little different. So now this might be a little more colorful, a little more light. It depends on the look and feel you're trying to get in your classroom. So I may have this for settings and for homework assignments. Another thing you might do for homework assignments, with Hanging with Education, we have not covered calendars, and perhaps that might be a topic we could look at on another date. But we can include calendars on this as well, because all the Google tools do integrate fairly well. So I'm going to go back to Edit Page. I'm going to move my I'm going to turn text wrap on first of all so I can move this around, and I'm going to click above it. I'm going to click on it and then move my left arrow. Ooh, that didn't do what I wanted to. I hit the left arrow and everything got shifted out. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to discard my changes because I don't know what that left arrow did. Wow, that really threw everything off. I'm using the screen at a higher resolution than I normally do. So things are jumping around a little bit more than I normally would have them jump. What I'm going to do is hit enter a few times so that I can come back up here up top and insert a calendar. So I've gone in, I've turned the wrap on, I've clicked on the image and used my arrow keys on my keyboard to move up above it and hit enter a few times to give myself some space here. I'll hit insert. I just thought of something that might be better. I'm going to hit cancel on this. And what I'm going to do is, instead of putting in that right-hand column, we have this nice footer down here that isn't being used by anything. I'll put my calendar down here. Sure, students have to scroll down a little bit, but I think it'll look nicer when it's on the page on the footer. So you can see calendar over here. This assumes that you have set up a Google Calendar already. So if you haven't done this, you probably won't see anything there. In my case, I probably have too many calendars. I have to find the right one. This is the one I want, demonstration calendar. I hit select. Now it gives me a bunch of options. How high do I want this? If I leave this empty, it'll fill the page or the container that it's in. I get to choose whether I want it to be monthly, weekly, or agenda. I happen to want monthly for this, but the agenda is nice if you just want to list all the deadlines, due dates, notes that you put into your calendar. They would see the agenda as a different list. So tweak that and play around with that a little bit. You might find that some of those settings are better for you than others. And I'm going to leave all these checked for now just so we can see what all of those are in their full glory. Again, as any Google tool comes in, it just looks like a box. Don't get frustrated. Set it up for the alignment you want. And then you can hit save up top. And you can see I got demonstration calendar listed twice because one's the name, one is the name of the plugin piece I have here. But here is the calendar. I can see that there's an event here. If I click on it, oh, there's a Google Site session on that day. And I can click for more details if I want. First draft of my research is due next week, and I can click on more details. And when I click on more details, it jumps me right to the event in my calendar where I can add more details and those kind of ideas. I want to show you how powerful this is because I can go into this calendar. I'm in my calendars right now, and I'm on my demonstration calendar. And let's say tomorrow I want to put in a surprise test. So I just type in surprise test, and it's going to be at 8 a.m. because everybody loves 8 a.m. tests. And I want to put a note in here. Please bring, donuts. All right, so please bring donuts. And I'm putting that in my demonstration calendar. And now as soon as I create that event, I can see it here on the calendar. But if I go back to my web page, let me close this out. Notice how it doesn't show up here immediately? That's because on this web page, the student hasn't changed anything. But if I go to another page, let's say I navigate to my news page, and then I go back to my home page, that home page has reloaded. So I'm hoping, see it says loading. Now it updates the calendar. So if you make some changes and students don't see it immediately, just remind students they have to either refresh their page by hitting this reload button or refresh. And I believe if they're using another browser, the refresh is on the other side. I would caution you against other browsers if you're going to be using the Google Suite. There are some difficulties if your browsers aren't up to date. So you may have some frustration with it looks okay on Chrome, but then you go to another browser and it looks all screwed up, or it's not looking the way you want it. So I have this calendar set up so the students can have their different events shared with them. The nice thing is if I set this calendar up right, I can even have it text message them. I don't have to know their text numbers. I can have them subscribe to the calendar with text messaging so that it may message them the night before if an event is coming up. With students having more and more access to cell phones, especially, I think there was a survey recently that showed that there are more cell phones in use than computers. Having that SMS feature where I can just text an event as it's coming up is great. So we have the news feed, which they can subscribe to. We also have a calendar, which they can subscribe to. By having your web page set up, even if you're just going to put down goal-setting pieces of information, this could be very useful for some of our younger students, especially who are still learning some of their goal-setting and management issues. I'm going to go back up to this more actions because there are a lot of other options in here that you'll need to be aware of. The major one you'll want is the manage sites. This is only available on a site you have created. If I share this site with other people, they can come in and they can edit this site as well, but they won't have all of the privileges that you're about to see on the screen. If I hit manage site, you can see this horrible name. I'm not going to show that on the top anymore. I don't want that showing up. So I just checked that checkbox off here so they don't see this horrible name I had to make up because there's zillions of people out there trying to make websites. I should just kind of put down a message here for people who come in. If I want to say hi or let people know things about my site, I can make another website for different notices. And the description is nice. If you're an education site, you should let people know who you're representing, what kind of, what adult ed agency you're working with, that kind of stuff. Other things you might want to do down here is if you ever want to delete a site. Tonight, I'm just creating the site for ha-has to play around a little bit. After tonight, I want to delete this site. I don't need it. And you could also publish this site as a template. That's going to put it in the public gallery listing where everybody can access your site as a template. I'm going to show you a couple templates I did up, and we'll be able to see exactly what that looks like. But I did want to show you that this is where you would publish your site and delete your site. And that's on the left-hand side, rather. It says General tab. There's sharing and permissions if I want to share this with other people. What is my web address? I'll briefly go over those. There are so many settings in here. It's worth spending a little bit of time checking out some of these options in here. There is a way you can go to like GoDaddy and get your own address. That's how I got my 5squared.us account. I bought that through one of the agencies online, and then I had to go through this setup to configure. It is not intuitive, nor is it easy, but if anybody ever needs help on that, by all means, shoot me an email, and I'll commiserate with, a nice glass of wine with you, and we'll get our way through that. Under sharing to permit, I have to save this first because I made a change. So I'm going to save. and I'm going to go to one of the other options here. Sharing and permissions is great if you're going to collaborate on a site, because quite frankly, who's got time to do all of the updates you might want to do? And if you have teachers who are teaching with you, which many adult ed teachers work collaboratively, or I know there's an adult ed right down the road, 15 miles away, and we're trying to collaborate on resources because we both, we don't have funding to put in 1,500 hours all over the place. So I might type in someone's email address here and invite them into joining my site. I also can change this site to see for who can see my site. Right now it's on the public. If someone did a search for that really ugly name, I have it up here in my address bar, and I know someone's probably going to go do a search for that as they view this. It's not there anymore after this recording. I'll delete it. I could also do it anybody with a link. I'm working on a site privately. I just want to invite a few people, and I only want a few people to be able to see it. Nobody will be able to see this site unless people will have a link, unless I give them a link to it. And then I can turn this off where nobody gets to see it, only people I share my site with. So if you're in a school setting that's very restrictive and you have to make sure that only your students can see your site for various reasons, and there's different reasons to do this and different reasons not to, you would hit off so it's not on public. Someone can't even get to it with a link. You have to physically type in their email addresses if you want them to see your website. And then if they leave your program, let's say they've matriculated out and they've gone off in the college, that would be great. But now you got to go back in here and manually remove them, which isn't a big hassle. Next to each person's name, there'll be an X over in the right-hand corner. It's not really hard to do. You just have to remember to do it. And that's a challenge I have when I do it with that kind of restriction on there. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to turn this back to public. And again, I just click on change, hit public, and anyone can view it. Now, if I was really crazy, I can try to change this so it's public and anybody can edit it. But of course, that would be ultimate chaos. Anybody and their grandmother would be able to change things around. One thing you'll notice up here, enable page level permissions. This is where I have a website and I can start saying students can only edit this page of my site. They can't edit other pages in my site. Much more complicated, a little bit more difficult. I really don't want to go into it, but I did want to let you know that it's available, because sometimes teachers say, oh, well, I want students to do this, but I don't want them touching that. Well, you can do that with the page level permissions. And finally, the reason I brought this manage sites up is because you can come down to themes, colors, and fonts. Remember I said you can change some of the themes that you had picked in the beginning. So here it's a condensed version, so it looks a little squished. I can come up here to browse more themes, and that brings me to themes that are available online that others have put in. I'm going to hit my back button on that because I don't need that. And I'm going to click on themes and colors again. On top, up on top where it says simple, I can choose all the original themes that were there. So I'm going to choose Slate because it's quite a contrast to what I had before. And we can see down here how it's changed my site. And again, this is a preview scrunched in view because I have mine at 150%. But notice how you can change all these different areas. So I can customly or manually change every single aspect of my web page. This can get really extensive, and it may take some time to play around with. These are all set to theme, but if I choose, let's say I want to choose a different color. What is that? Where do I click on that? Oh, you know what? I can't see it because my screen's at the wrong resolution. So let me shrink my screen down a little. I can put down that I don't want any color for my background, or maybe I want to choose a funky yellow. And you'll see down here in the preview how my funky yellow fills in with this darker color screen. Or I can go right back to theme and it fills it right back in. So you have the option to change a number of different things, and that's just on entire page background. If I go to text, right now the font color is in this white. Well, maybe I want that font color to be that yellow, and you can see now what that does to my web page. So the customization here can go pretty nuts, and it is pretty deep. So although this is a very simple web page program, the level of customization a student can do is quite intense. I'm going to save this just so I can make that change. It says my changes have been saved. Now this is another thing that kind of freaks people out. I hit save and nothing happened on my screen. All I see is this little message box up top in the middle of my screen. Your changes have been saved. Okay, that's it. It doesn't give me anything else here. So I still can scroll through the options here, or I can click on this button right here, which is my site name, and it brings me right back to my site. So I can see what things look like here. Here's my demonstration calendar. Kind of like the darkness here. This is kind of neat. I do want to go back into Manage Sites, because I mentioned earlier that you can move pages around. On the left-hand side, you'll see the second item down says Pages, and you'll see that I have different pages available here. I can click and drag to move pages around. So maybe I want the news feed underneath my home page. So it's moving that page right now. It's going to take a little bit here just because of some internet slowness. My news was underneath my root. Now I've moved it underneath the home page. Someone might ask, well, why does that matter? What does that care? Why do I care about this? Well, let's go back to our site and see what that did. Notice on the left-hand side, news doesn't show up on the root. So you might think of the root as this imaginary line on the left-hand side of the words. But there's a triangle now underneath home. When I click that triangle, I can see, oh, there's some news here. So maybe that news screen I don't need out here as a choice, because I want learners and teachers and anybody else accessing this to go through my news feed I've set up on my page. So I might want the page just kind of stashed under the home page, because it's really a sub page of home. So this might work well for me. But maybe another page which might have the calendar on it, maybe I make a page just for the calendar. Why don't we do that real quick? I'll hit Create Page. I'll say Calendar. And I'm going to put the level right at the top level, because I want this to show up equal with the home page. And I'm going to leave it as a web page. And I hit Create. Now, again, this just makes a basic web page with the word calendar on it. It has the add files and all that stuff. The add files really aren't appropriate for what I'm doing, so I'll have to remember to get rid of that. The layout is fine. I just need one single box here. I can go Insert, back to Calendar. And again, if you don't have calendars, just look at how you would do it. Those are all calendars I had made. And I'll save that. Oh, you know what I want to do? I'm going to go back to the properties. I'm going to choose a different format here. Let's put it Agenda, just so you can see what the agenda looks like. And I'll center that, and I'll hit Save. So now I have a calendar. And here's the agenda format. And they can print the agenda format, which is very nice. So if they want to see, what do I have to do for class, the agenda format is very nice for them to be able to just print off the agenda while they're with us if they don't have internet access at home. So that could be useful. So now I have my home page, which happens to have a calendar down below it. And I also can click on Calendar, which has something on it as well. Now, I do have a whole lot more to show, but I am looking at the time and going, oof, we may not have time to do all this. But I do want to show you some other things that are available. This is my calendar screen. Oh, a document. I'm going to make a new page, and I'm going to call this Homework. This is maybe a homework assignment I want to share with my students, and they know they're going to go to this page all the time to get their homework assignments for the week. So under Select a Location, I will put this at the top level because I do want it to show up in that left navigation bar. By the way, there is a way to edit this left navigation bar. That's a little bit more advanced, and if we want to go into more advanced features of Google Sites, there's a lot of power we can get into, but we need more than just an hour introduction for that. So for the homework, I'm going to choose a different layout here because I want to have headers and footers with one column because I want to put my instructions down. You know, with the following paper, please offer editing, thoughts, and comments. And then in the main body of the page, I'm just going to go Insert, and I'm going to go over to my Google Drive, and I'm going to choose Document. Now, it's going to show the ones I've had most recently opened. Now, in this case, I'm going to open Sample Document, but I can go ahead and navigate through all of my Google Docs to pull up a document that I'd like. Also, notice how you can put presentations, spreadsheets, forms, anything you've created in Google, you can embed that directly into the web page. So if you made a form, like a test or a quiz, you can put the test or quiz here. All the students have to do is go to your website. They've been going to your site all semester, and then just click on the quiz for today. And boom, they finish the quiz. You can have that auto-graded and put class results, not individual results, but class results back on the web page in the form of a graph. We could do that next week if you wanted to try that. I'll choose the default items here, and I'm just going to center it just because I like to have it centered. And when I save it, here is a document that I wanted them to edit. So this is a paper that a student did, and they want some editing on it. So I share it with other students, you know, with the author's permission, so they can get some editing notes on this. Now, if you'll notice, if I go back to my sample document, here is the student's sample document, and I come up here and I add some stuff, and I say, hello, world. Google automatically saves the changes as you type. So when I go back to my website, again, nothing has told the computer here that it needs to reconnect to the document. But if I hit refresh, and that document has been changed, it automatically shows the changes. So every time a student comes to this web page, let's say this is a document where I put down some resources for students. Here are all the resources you need for our class as we discover new ones. Then I can update that list, and I don't have to hand it out to students. It's right there on the web page. It's automatically updated. I don't have to re-upload or save things or post them to a server or all this other crazy web mumbo-jumbo. I simply go in the document, make my changes. It automatically shows up on my web page. That simplicity has helped so many teachers find really useful things to do with these web page, classroom web pages they design. Now, I did mention that I have some templates, and I do want to show you what that looks like. In my sites, I have to go back to my sites here. Okay, I'm just going to type over here. sites.google.com. And I have down below here, I have some templates. So I'm just going to show student portfolio. This might be a full session we spend on student portfolio possibilities. But I have this whole website set up, and it's called About Me is the name, template student portfolio. So I'm just going to leave that up, and I'm going to go back to Google Sites and say I want to create a site. But this time I want to browse the gallery, and in there I might want to choose the name. So again, the name here is template student. Let's see if Google finds it just with those two words. Well, I found a few other people's. So again, a lot of people are doing this. So let me go ahead and get the full name. student portfolio. I think I spelled that right. And again, we have a few other choices. All right, I'd have to get the exact name here. That is the name. The site is in the gallery. Any changes? Use this template. Oh, just by going to the site, I can just click Use this template. I'm curious what name it comes up with. Oh, Student Portfolio. Get out. It was that easy. I have to go back just for curiosity. Student Portfolio. Let's see what shows up there. I'm not seeing that there. I wonder if I put down my name as well. See if that helps find it or narrow it down. It does not. Interesting. So finding it when I typed in student portfolio before in the past, I did this template some time ago. It would automatically show up, and notice how it automatically has it selected here. I can name this because this is just a template. So I need to name this my template copy and select the theme. I can change the theme and everything else. I'll delete this site when I'm done. And I hit create. Now what that does is it takes the template that the teacher's made and it allows me to rename it, change the theme of the site, and then I can start making this site mine. The teacher just provided me with a backbone. Think of that for resumes. Think of that, for a lot of our work ready information. In this case, I have it for a student portfolio, where all the things in blue are things students would fill in. And I have just a general template here that's usable now for students. So let's go over, we just have a minute or two left here. I've done all these sites, and I just got rid of the tab I wanted to go to. I've done all these sites, and I have this list of all these websites that I've created or somebody shared with me. I want to get rid of some of these things. They're driving me crazy. So it's important that you know how to get rid of things. So here's the one I just did, my template copy. I'm going to click on that one. It brings me to the site. Under the gear, I'll remind you that as long as you've made the site, under Manage Sites, under the General tab, which by default it goes to the General, about a quarter page down, it goes to delete this site. When you click on that, you can hit delete, and that will go through a process. Now, if you did not make the site and somebody shared it with you, for instance, Amanda has shared this site with me. There's a different procedure to do that with. Let me see if I can find another one I'd like to delete. I need one that somebody has shared with me that I need to get rid of. Unfortunately, I just did all of this deleting. I purged, I don't know, a couple hundred sites out of here. But if I go to Amanda's site, I don't really want to get rid of this right now. But you have to scroll to the very bottom of their site and say remove access. So this is a site that you did not create, but it's shared with you and you don't want to see it anymore in your list. You would scroll to the bottom of their page and you'll see a remove access if you are a shared partner with the site. And again, in this case, I don't want to do that, but Amanda's site would no longer be listed on my sites if I had done that, if I go to her page and choose remove. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining me again for another week with Hanging with Education. We just really touched the surface of what can be done with a Google site. There are some really powerful advanced features I'd like to show you maybe next week if people have interest. I'll remind you at 5squared.us I have a form where you can put in your suggestions and your options that you'd like to see. One thing I'd like to show maybe next week is how to use a form for instant feedback on a Google site. That ability to do quick stop-ins. Could the class take a break, pull out your devices, go to the class site, And please click on survey number 6. Now, survey number 6 might be questions I wanted to double check on after we reviewed some of the homework, for instance, just to see where's everybody's level of understanding. And what's really powerful about those kind of instant feedback things is as soon as everybody's done hitting submit on their quizzes, all the results in terms of the class dynamics are posted on that website. No names are given. I just see nice bar graphs or pie graphs or whatever I'd like to demonstrate it as. And the students can immediately respond. You know, are we doing okay? Can we move on? Is this something we should review more? And they really have ownership of that. And what's really nice is it lets everybody in the room know they're not the only one that's struggling, because they can see the results right there. You know, if 20% is having success, that's obviously something we need to continue working on. And especially in mathematics, that visual confirmation that I'm not the only one is very helpful. So another thing we can explore later on, there are plugins we can use with YouTube that are really nice and convenient. There are some things you could do with the website to make it more interactive with parents as well. Feedback forms and things like that we can include. So I'd like to thank you again for joining us this week. Hopefully you found this helpful for you in being exposed to what Google Sites is. And I look forward to maybe catching up with you next week. Have a great week.